This Sunday,
the Friends are coming! The Friends are coming!
Sons of Liberty, history's new scripted drama.
Hand over the tray to Samuel Adams and John Hancock.
The untold story of a group of rebels
These are our streets!
who brought an empire to its knees.
These people are asking for a war. We're going to give them one.
Let's show them what we're made of. Fire!
A 3-night special event, Sons of Liberty. Premieres Sunday at 9, 8 Central on History.
ESPN Radio. This is the Thundering Herd Podcast.
Oh, it's the Herd on ESPN Radio, wherever you may be, however you may be listening. Thanks for making us part of your day. Presented by Progressive Insurance. All of our guests via the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. Simulcast on ESPNU. Best show of the week right here. I can feel it, baby. I can feel it, baby. Getting ready for the holidays. 2 more days. I go in lockdown for 10. Today and tomorrow, then it is lockdown. Update on my French Bulldog Bugsy, 14 years old. Still alive. Slept with me last night. Rubbed the tummy for about a half hour. Still alive. Good dog, man. Good dog. All right, there's 2 stories today I want to get to. A couple years ago, 4 or 5, I had an epiphany. Personal epiphany, not a professional. Well, maybe it works in my profession too. I was done babysitting people, not kids, like people. Friends, business partners. I was out of the babysitting business, and I got happier. Is that instead of talking, I started listening more. Because I came to the conclusion after all these years of living that people told you what they were. Shame on me if I didn't listen. I'm not Deepak Chopra. I'm not a therapist. I don't have that skill set. And so about 5 years ago, I really changed some fundamental things about me because I realized I couldn't change fundamental things about other people. Okay? I'm not just done with Jay Cutler, the Bears quarterback. I'm done with people like Jay Cutler, and I'm happier for it. I don't want to babysit radio producers. I don't want to babysit friends, business partners. I don't want to babysit people. That's why I like Russell Wilson, Tom Brady, Joe Flacco, Andrew Luck. I don't have to waste energy trying to maintain some sort of relationship. There's a guy out there that writes books named Jim Collins. And he wrote a book called From Good to Great. Very, very popular business book about a decade ago. And he said the difference between very good and great in business is not talent. Jay Cutler's got talent. I can see that on television. Got a big arm, like a Matt Stafford, Cam Newton arm. I can see. But what I can't see is focus, drive, intuition, emotional maturity, a narrow focus. Can he confront weakness? You can't see that stuff. But from time to time, Jay Cutler will show it to me. And when he does, shame on me for not paying attention to it. Jay Cutler has shown us time and time again what he is. We don't want to listen. He's shown us he's moody. He's inconsistent. He's curt. He wears coaches out. Shame on us for not listening. Allen Iverson waved a flag for 20 years. Practice? You talk about practice? He told us what he thought about anything other than him and game time. You ladies who marry the bad boy, then complain he gets in at 2:30 in the morning, that's a you problem. And you guys who married Dakota, and then you're shocked she puts on glitter when she's just going out for coffee with friends, that's a you problem. The day Jay Cutler came to Chicago, this is the happiest he's ever been.
I grew up watching this organization, grew up watching these games. I love this. I love being a Chicago Bear. It's always been something that, I've dreamed of doing. So it's, like I said, it's just been kind of a whirlwind. It's kind of setting in right now.
I don't even think he sounded that happy then. But he's never been that guy. He doesn't elevate others. He's a guy with a cannon arm that's wildly turnover prone. First year in Chicago, 26 picks, 4 fumbles. Next year, 16-9. 2 years later, 14-7. This year, 18-9. Go look at his numbers. He's always told us what he was. We just don't want to listen to it. Yes, a desperate team will get him and sign him and trade for him. That's the NFL. But I'm out of the babysitting business, therefore, I'm out of the Jay Cutler business. Not interested. Even in a league where you need a quarterback. And I get it. But there's got to be somebody else out there. Here's the other story. Today, Subway says, thanks, $2 6-inch subs during holiday customer appreciation. Subway, eat fresh. That, you see this a lot with restaurants, right? Like a lot of restaurants are like hotels. They're tiered. Like if I say to you Motel 6, you think, okay, discount. If I say to you Hilton, Marriott, you're like, oh, that's pretty good. If I say to you Mandarin or Four Seasons, you're like, whoa, that's pricey. So I just say a hotel, and in your mind, you slot it. You do it. You slot it. And that's what hotels try to do. They sell their layer. They sell their standard. Airlines, not as much. I say United, Delta, you think kind of the same thing. Hotels, different. Restaurants do the same thing. Restaurants look down their nose. You know, some restaurants are like, we're not in the drive-through business. Please, we are a sit-down restaurant. We are not in the takeout business. That is beneath us. What, excuse me? You can make how much money with takeout? Oh, my bad. Sure, we'll do it. Be careful what you detest and mock. It may become you. Yeah, that family next door's got crazy kids. Bet they do drugs. Ooh, whoops. Ours is doing meth. That crazy, zany divorced couple. Oh, my wife's cheating on me. Be careful. The University of Michigan. It's a tremendous school academically. Ann Arbor is a sophisticated college town. High-end theater. Symphony. Amazing medical school. Here's the truth about Michigan. They have looked down. They have looked down for years at the SEC. Lack of sophistication, desperate. They'll do anything to win football games. Interesting. Michigan offered Jim Harbaugh 6. He said no. They're now up to 8.1. Use a jet anytime. Will allow JUCO transfers in. And almost no buyout if you want to ditch us for the NFL. Michigan, you've become what you detest. Desperate. Adam Schefter on Mike and Mike this morning.
Michigan is a school that balked at using private planes for recruiting. It balked at giving iPads to its football program. Balks at increasing the size of its support staff. It has one of the smallest support staffs. And now, allegedly, it's offering all this money to get Jim Harbaugh.
Absolutely. We are way up here. Would you like to go to the symphony tonight? Rich Rodriguez doesn't fit our standards of sophistication. He says y'all and has a southern drawl. His wife is kind of sexy and wears sundresses. That is not Michigan.
Mr. Harbaugh, we'll do anything to get you. We just want to win football games.
You've become what you detest. I hate trolls. Oh, whoops, I am one. Very interesting. Now, all that said, desperate times, desperate measures. If I'm Michigan, I empty out the bank account to get Harbaugh too. But be careful what you mock. All you snooty restaurant guys, that drive-through takeout stuff, they make a lot of money. Life's changed, culture's changed. I can't sit down at your restaurant. Like your food, but if you did takeout, I'd eat there 4 times more a month. Takeout, it works in today's culture.
Mr. Harbaugh, you can bring in JUCO players.
That's not who you are, Michigan. That's never been what you're about.
You can use our president's jet. You don't have to pay for toilet paper. We'll give it to you for free.
Want more of the herd? The Thundering Herd Podcast.
Eric says, Colin, I've listened to your show for 8 years. I really enjoy it. Over the years, one of the things you always talk about is progressive thinking and evolving. Couldn't I argue Michigan's evolving? Absolutely, Eric. And as I said, Wisconsin keeps changing coaches and losing good ones because they're cheap. That's why Wisconsin is eroding right now. 59-0 to Ohio State. They look terrible. Michigan's like, hey, we got to become Alabama. I'm not mocking you for that. What I'm saying is you have always been above Ohio State. Michigan looks at Ohio State as that school that will do anything to win football games. Ugh. That's what you become. And believe me, this will sound hoity-toity. My agent, my attorney, you got to have an agent in my business. I've had several from Michigan. My attorney's from Michigan. Michigan's got a great law school. It is unbelievably formidable. But Michigan people, a lot of them have always looked down at Ohio State. Icky. Ew. JUCO players, private jets for coaches. Rich Rod said, y'all, he doesn't get to come to the martini party. Now you're just acknowledging, dude, we got to get a football coach. The Midwest is eroding. We got to pay $8 million, anything you want, let anybody in. Hey, I'm not banging on you for that. I'm banging on you for be careful in life what you detest. You'll become that. Michigan's becoming what they detested, Alabama and Auburn. Alabama and Auburn just acknowledge it. They're like, yeah, there's some people that are just better. We'll pay them more money. We're dying for Saban here. He makes our life better. At least they acknowledge it. Saban's leaving, we'll give you more. We got nothing else here. I mean, seriously, there's a good barbecue shack down the corner in Birmingham and football. That's all we got. But I respect the fact they own it. They're like, this is what we got. Nate, you're in the Herd on ESPN Radio. Nate, go ahead.
Hey, Colin. I just was thinking, I'm a huge Michigan fan. I love the idea of Harbaugh going there, but with them doing this, spending, top dollar for him, I think it's kind of going the wrong way because most likely he's going to say no. And I think we could pay a coach half of that, like Gary Pinkel, the Missouri coach.
Yeah, but why would Gary Pinkel leave? And secondly, what bothers you with paying a football coach $8 million? Here's my thing. You're never going to make that. I'm never going to make that. Who cares? Pay for excellence. Don't worry about what the CEO makes. Apple's not as good without Steve Jobs. Who gives a rip if he makes $200 million a month? He creates all these phones we love. Don't worry about if you resent money, you'll never make it. If you resent success, you'll never achieve it. Pay whatever you got to pay to get the best guy. No, people are. This is what's funny. Liberals tend to be like, spread the wealth. Everybody's even. Ann Arbor's super liberal. They're acknowledging, yeah, this guy deserves more money. He's a 1%er. Be careful complaining and bitching about 1%ers. You may need to hire one someday to turn around your company. That's why I've never had any resentment toward the 1%. All the stuff I drive to work, all the gadgets are the 1%. Why should I resent them? If they want to work 20 hours a day and not sleep and be miserable, let them. If Jim Harbaugh wants to win football games and not sleep and be miserable, let him. Be careful mocking people. You may need them. You may become them. It's everybody is like, ooh, but that's too much money. You want to win games or not? Who's your backup? Dan Mullen? Ain't Harbaugh, partner. Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. But I find it funny now, a lot of these northern tier universities that are very liberal, and this is outrageous, you're finding out sometimes people just are better, and you got to pay top dollar in the marketplace for them, and you'll create another 1%er. Sorry. I mean, Harbaugh's contract makes him a 1% of a 1%er. Limited time offer, peppermint rose bouquet, 1-800-Flowers, save $20. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. So yesterday, Sony canceled this movie called The Interview. And, you guys don't like it when I talk politics or anything, so I'm going to try to keep this away from politics. But Sony Pictures canceled this movie because there were threats from North Korea. The movie's about North Korea and its leader, Kim Jong-un, and Kim Jong-un, whatever it is. Sorry, my bad. I don't keep up with their politics much. They're off the rails. So, first of all, it's incredibly discouraging. I don't believe you should ever let people who make threats. I get threats here. I go right after them. I'm not a believer in you listen to people with threats. We do live in a different world. There's beheadings. There's terrorism. Sometimes the threats are real. This was not a real threat. If you listen to our government, I don't think this was a real threat, and it makes me sick to my stomach that in this country I wouldn't have caved. I think it's an incredibly dangerous precedent, and it bothers me. But can I just say this as well, and I'm not defending North Korea. America doesn't get Hollywood. West Hollywood. America doesn't get it. 99% of America looks at West Hollywood and goes, freak show, not like the rest of us. Now, I love West Hollywood. I mean, I love it. It's my favorite place maybe in America. I love it. Great restaurants, quirky, fun, wild. It's West Coast Mardi Gras, Monday morning at 8. I love West Hollywood. But most of America doesn't get it. You think North Korea is going to get it? They probably think this movie's a propaganda film or a documentary urging Americans to go kill their leader. I mean, seriously, I'm not defending North Korea, but are we surprised by this? Now think about this. North Korea, wouldn't we all acknowledge, is the kooky place? It's the off-the-rails kooky place. According to their national media, in 1994, Kim Jong II had 11 holes in one. Really? Kim Jong-il. He also invented the hamburger. This is not breaking news. This is a report of what... You know what they tell their people about the World Cup? We won again every year. Okay? He drinks more cognac, $700,000 a year in cognac. It's like 45 times the average income of their citizens. He will not let anybody have his name. They're now mandating you change it because he wants to be the only person in the country with his name. Okay, they're off the rails. We all went to high school with a kid. Maybe he had bad parent. He was just off. He didn't poke him in the ribs. He didn't call him poor. He didn't mock him. He had enough issues. You're surprised they reacted this way when we make a movie, use their leader's name, and kill him at the end of the movie. If Russia did that with Barack Obama, you don't think it'd make the news here? You wouldn't be watching either MSNBC or Fox and they'd have been waving the fireworks show? Listen, I don't defend the move. Sony had the backbone of a squid. I think it's a horrible precedent. I think it's dangerous. And I don't think you should ever cave to threats, especially like this one. But you're going to tell me you're surprised that North Korea, in a movie mocking their culture, where you use the name of their leader and kill him at the end of the movie, we're surprised by the reaction. In a world where hacking happens, I don't know, every day to every American retailer. I mean, Sony caved, but use a little common sense here. And let's have a little understanding for the world we live in. North Korea is off the rails. They tell their people, hey, we just won the World Cup again. Okay. We invented the hamburger. I mean, come on. So, do you see this? Michael Vick proves what I always believed. And
where Colin was right.
Yeah, I was on Michael Vick. Horrible incident, good heart. Michael Vick's not a terrible person. Michael Vick did a terrible thing with dogs. Did you read the story today? He never filed for Chapter 7. Michael Vick owed the NFL and people $18 million. He's paid almost all of it himself. You think guys on Wall Street would do that? You think guys in Bel Air, Hamptons would do that? No, they'd get out of it. Michael Vick has paid almost every cent himself. He's got a real soul. He made a horrible decision. A terrible decision. He's not a terrible guy. People make mistakes. To this day, Michael Vick's apology press conference ranks, along with Kevin Durant's MVP speech, as the greatest speech I've seen in the last probably 10 years in sports. And that counts executives and commissioners. Michael Vick that day stood up, looked you in the eye, and said, I did a horrible thing. Find a politician that does that. A historic event in our country. Dan Lebitard is going to update me on that. And There is a topic this hour on an American athlete who is saying, I'm going to die early, and I'm going to wildly support it.
You're in the herd. The Thundering Herd Podcast.
30 college bowl games live in December. Tune in radio app. So I saw this. Chris Conte, Chicago Bears safety, had a couple of concussions this year. And he said yesterday, playing in the NFL is worth the risk he takes of his long-term health. He goes, quote, ever since I was a little kid, this is what I wanted to do. In college, I didn't even graduate my senior year. I honestly let school be a casualty to that because I knew I had one opportunity to make it to the NFL, and I put everything into it. And I felt school's something I could figure out later. He's 25, litany of injuries this year. And he said, as long as I outlive my parents, then, we're going to be all right. And, a lot of people will look at that and say, man, that's a short-term way of thinking. But, folks, life isn't a 401k. You can't wait to tap into it. You know that sugary dessert isn't great for you. Either is that sunburn or that cocktail. You think those sodas go down easy? But you do it because it satisfies you or elevates you in the moment. If you're a guy, 0 to 20, your parents run your life, and 50 on, you deteriorate. 20 to 47 are the get busy living or get busy dying years. If I told you at 45 you could go on an HGH shot once a week for 20 years, but your sex would be better. You'd lose 10% body fat. You'd be sharper. Your skin would be clearer. Your hair would be fuller. But you'd die 4 years early. Okay. And you're going to be a 401k with your life? I'm not going to criticize people who have such a deep passion they're willing to subtract years later. Our society benefits from passionate people. That cool iPhone? Workaholic. That car you're driving? XM? Workaholic. They sacrificed. They gave up social life, relationship, years on their life. They created stress. All the cool stuff we play with was created from a workaholic, not a, dude, I'm backpacking around Amsterdam. See you in about 4 years. That guy doesn't create anything. He just leaves a resin trail through life. So I'm never going to argue with somebody. When people, I tell my kids all the time, fall in love with something. It's a better life. I don't care what it is. Just fall in love with something. For me, it was radio. Fall in love with something. And this kid loves football. You can go back to college. No problem going back to college. But I see this a lot with this, class action lawsuits against the NFL. Football gave you something you couldn't duplicate at 17 to 31. Yeah, your fingers and your back are sore, but it took you to a place you couldn't duplicate. More on Chris Conte of the Bears.
As far as after football, who knows? My life will revolve around football to some point, but I'd rather have the experience of playing in the NFL and, who knows, die 10, 15 years earlier than not be able to play in the NFL and, live a long life. It's something that I wanted to do in my life and I wanted to accomplish, and I've pretty much set my whole life up to accomplish that goal.
I just got a text from a buddy who's a fireman. He goes, fireman died 10 years earlier than everybody else. But it was my choice, and I love the life it creates. If it makes your life better in the moment, come on. You're losing 5 years off the back end. Isn't it worth having more fun in the great years? You only have so many. You're a guy. 0 to 19, your parents run it. Then after that, it's college. And then you're broke for 5 years. You get about 15 years where your prostate doesn't hurt, you look pretty good, and you've got great energy. Make them count. Make them count. All right, I'm furious at Bill Simmons. Just furious. So, as you well know, one of my favorite shows ever is Curb Your Enthusiasm and Seinfeld, 2 of my top 10 ever. I like Mary Tyler Moore. I like Cheers. I like The Sopranos. Big fan of Curb Your Enthusiasm. Big fan of Seinfeld. Larry David's the brains behind both. And Larry David's kind of this legendary, kind of comedic guru, and one of Jerry Seinfeld's great friends. So anyway, we asked him to come on my show like once a year. He's busy. He's serious. It's like Steven Spielberg. I mean, he's got things to do. He's not going to come on my stupid show. But Bill Simmons, apparently, because he lives in L.A., got him on a podcast. And so here's Bill Simmons, I thought my friend, talking to Larry David yesterday.
Oh, so you watch the studio shows?
I watch them when I work out, yeah.
Really? Which ones do you watch?
I love Colin.
Colin Cowherd?
Colin Cowherd, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, what's so interesting about it? Maybe you want to have my back. First of all, listen to the pause here. Like Simmons is stunned. Somebody smart would listen to my show.
Oh, so you watch the studio shows?
I watch them when I work out, yeah.
Really? Which ones do you watch?
I love Colin.
Pause.
Colin Cowherd?
Colin Cowherd.
Yeah, whatever Colin is there.
Colin Cowherd?
Yeah, me.
Interesting.
Not that interesting. Lots of people listen to the show.
Interesting.
Yeah, he's literally, Simmons is stunned by it. That's weird.
Colin Cowherd?
It's not like he said my favorite movie of all time was one starring a Kardashian. I mean, it's like, he's like, yeah, I like Colin. Even called me Colin. It's almost like we have a personal connection, Larry David. Listen to the jealousy in Simmons' voice. Go ahead, play it again.
Interesting. Oh, so you watch the studio shows?
I watch them when I work out, yeah.
Really? Which ones do you watch?
I love Colin.
Simmons is stunned by that.
Colin Cowherd?
Yeah, Colin Cowherd, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Look at he just hates it. Simmons.
Dude, that gap is unbelievable.
It is a 2-second
like
gap.
2 full seconds of,
Simmons,
wait a minute, which Colin could he be talking about?
Simmons is literally taken back. Colin?
He's like,
Colin
there's no
Cowherd.
way he means the Herd. He doesn't mean Cowherd. I can't think of any other Collins. Cowherd?
When I heard that yesterday, I howled. Really?
Colin Cowherd?
Interesting. Yeah, no, he sits around listening to Kaepernick all day.
Colin Cowherd?
Yeah, interesting.
Interesting.
Geico presents Strange Saving Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
30 years plus, working at NFL Films. We bring him on every Thursday through the football season. My pleasure. You can follow him on Twitter. Greg Cosell is joining us. Greg, how are you today?
Colin, my man, what's happening?
Well, we get to an interesting point, Greg, in the season. There's some attrition. There's teams that are not at full strength. When you look at film, Greg, and you see some teams that are beaten up, do you see a lower quality football on tape for some of these teams?
I wouldn't say you see that. I mean, what you see is teams that then have particular weaknesses and flaws that teams will probably attack because the philosophy in the NFL is you attack a weak link. So it's not necessarily lower quality football, but there are teams that if you're playing the next man up, so to speak, then he's the next man up for a reason.
Like for instance, I've heard this. Bobby Wagner came back to the Seahawks at linebacker, and everybody's been saying, oh, their defense is better. When you watch film, what does he do? How is he Superman? What's he do?
Well, God, we could go into that for a while, but he's a better player than the guy who's playing in his spot. He's a quicker, faster, more explosive athlete. He's a better run defender. He's a better athlete in space than who's playing when he's out. So therefore, playing in the middle of that defense, and that defense is very strong in the middle, which is one of the reasons they're so good. He improves that defense not just incrementally, but significantly.
Okay. And so because right now it feels like to me, my eyes tell me New England's really good, Seattle's good. I still like Green Bay, but let's look at the Green Bay game with Buffalo. When you look at that on tape, what happened? What does the tape say? Have we found the kryptonite for Aaron Rodgers?
No, and then that whole so think about this logically. If for people who believe in that, so I guess that means now that we should bench Aaron Rodgers because every team will just do what the Bills did, which by the way wasn't very much. They did a couple of tactical things, but nothing extravagant or major. So every team should just do that, and therefore he'll never have a good game again. And by the way, Rodgers was very erratic in that game with his accuracy. But I will say this, keep this in mind. Rodgers always leaves some throws on the field, Colin, but he compensates with great throws. Rodgers he's a guy that he plays a little randomly. He moves around the pocket. He navigates the pocket, and then he'll stop and he'll drill the ball with tremendous velocity and tremendous accuracy late in the down. And he's the best in the league at that. In this game, those plays didn't happen. He either missed throws, he was inaccurate on throws. He was bad in this game. And that just happens sometimes. And by the way, if Jordy Nelson catches that ball, we might not be having this conversation.
Well, it's funny because what's interesting, Greg Cosell, NFL Films, what's interesting is people criticize Johnny Manziel for making stuff up, but what you say is Aaron Rodgers does it a lot too. He's just a better athlete.
Well, there's a difference. Rodgers does it within the confines mostly of the pocket. Rodgers is not a runaround player. Rodgers does it within the confines of the pocket, but there's no question that he's a late in the down thrower as he moves and navigates the pocket. He doesn't just take off. He doesn't overreact to the opposing jersey color. He doesn't break down necessarily. There are times he does that, but for the most part, he works within the confines of a fairly constricted area. He just makes a lot of plays that are off schedule, but they're still within the pocket.
Let's go to Manziel. A lot of people fall in love with running quarterbacks. Greg Cosell didn't. A lot of people fell in love with Manziel. You were cautious. What did the tape say?
Well, look, I don't need to tell you he was bad. But I think you have to start. I mean, let's be realistic. I don't know, first of all, what people expected. But I don't know what you think, Colin, what is Johnny Manziel? When you evaluate a quarterback, you start with foundational traits. What are the traits that will make a quarterback coming from college into a quality NFL quarterback?
Generally, hard worker, smart, give me some size, good arm, a little mobility, those things?
Yeah, I mean, we could spend, again, 20 minutes on that, but think of it this way. He's a small quarterback, number one, so that's against him. Number two, his arm strength, the way he plays is average. Now, he has a live arm, Colin, but because he plays the game off balance, that live arm becomes an average arm. So practically, he plays with an average arm. Functionally, he's got an average arm. And at this point in his career, he has almost no pocket skills and discipline. So he has a lot to overcome right now. Now, can he get there? That's a very open question. I actually read an article where, and I believe it was by Brian Billick, who I thought made a fascinating point. He said a lot of people compare him to Russell Wilson, and by the way, I don't think that comparison is the least bit valid at all. Brian Billick compared him to Troy Smith coming out of Ohio State.
That's what I think he looks like. That's exactly who I think he looks like.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty valid. So there's much for him to overcome. I've done this too long, Colin, to say, hey, forget it. You'll never see him I wouldn't say that after one start. But there's an awful lot to overcome. And the balance is this. Think of it this way. Everybody now believes, you got to make plays off script. Well, is that the way you're going to build a quarterback? Are you going to build a quarterback in the NFL by saying the foundation of your game is going to be off script, outside of structure plays? Is that the way the NFL game is played and coached?
Never worked. Yeah, can't do it. Never worked. But,
no.
The other thing, Greg Cosell joining us, the other quarterback issue is Cutler gets benched, Jay Cutler. Now, he's always, he's been inconsistent forever. Does the film say it's coaching, it's Cutler, he's gotten better, he's gotten worse? What's the film say on it?
Well, here's what I'll tell you. I talked to a lot of people last year, and I thought it was very evident on tape last year, who said that Mark Trestman's offense is so good that it has all the answers, that a quarterback never has an issue with what to do with the ball, that offense has all the answers, okay? So do you think in 1 year that Mark Trestman doesn't have the answers now?
I don't necessarily think Trestman's the issue. And that's my personal opinion, that Jay Cutler.
Ultimately, you're dealing with Jay Cutler, and you're dealing with a quarterback who's not executing the offense as designed, who's not functioning properly within the offense as designed. And when that happens, that's when quarterbacks get benched. And that's, I'm sure, what's happened in Chicago. I'm not there, but I'm sure that's what happened.
On tape, is he sloppy? Is he? I mean, what do you see
He's
on tape?
always been that way. You know, Cutler's redeeming features always have been a big-time arm and the ability to make any throw that other guys, you know, with few exceptions, can't make. That's always been his redeeming quality, and believe me, I bought into that as well. He's an extremely talented guy throwing a football. I think the other parts of the game, the parts that take you from being an extremely talented guy who's erratic to being a high-level quarterback on a week-to-week basis, those parts he's lacking. And he's now played 9 years in the league.
That's right.
So the legitimate question is he ever going to get them?
Yeah, I think it's part of his personality. Okay, Arizona is on their 13th quarterback.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Tied for the best record in the league. Okay. What on tape are they doing that's I mean, I see their stats. They can't run the ball. They can't do this. Well, what are they doing on tape?
Well, they're a defensive team first and foremost. It starts there. And defense sets the tone. They're a really good defensive team. They're high percentage blitz. They play a dime sub-package, 6 DBs that they may have the best dime sub-package in the league. And they're basically now compensating for an offense that really can't function effectively, and now they're on their third quarterback. So they play Seattle this week. They're going to try to play a game here that's Harvard-Yale 1938, Colin. They're going to try to play a 6-3 game.
Well, good luck. I just find them to be – I've never had less confidence in a number 1 seed in my life. I don't
know if they'll end up as the number 1 seed, but, hey, we'll see how it plays out.
All right, Greg, one play – you do this every week for us, and I absolutely love it. NFL Films, Greg Cosell, one play you went back and watched over and over and over.
You know, because of all the talk about mobile quarterbacks, I actually went back this week and I chose a play that shows how you play quarterback in the NFL. So I chose Mr. Brady.
Yeah.
Okay? This is how you play quarterback in the NFL. Okay? This is not college football. We're playing NFL quarterback. So I chose his 27-yard touchdown pass to Rob Gronkowski. And it shows so many things. First of all, Gronkowski's on the left of the screen, and he's going to run a seam route. The Dolphins are playing a zone concept, cover 3 with a single high safety. So the first thing you do as a quarterback is you must look away from Gronkowski to the other side of the field because you have to hold that high safety in the middle to make sure he doesn't drift immediately toward Gronkowski. You know what you have with Gronkowski, so you don't look there. Then he hits his back foot, then he looks to Gronkowski. But here's what playing quarterback in the NFL is. An inside pass rusher gets clean. I believe it's Jared Odrick. He gets clean quickly, so Brady has to step in and make this throw with a D tackle bearing down on him. He's under major duress here, and this is a seam throw, not an easy throw. And he puts it right on Gronkowski's hands. Gronkowski gets inside of the safety that's covering him, and the safety that Brady manipulated can't get there in time. This is how you play quarterback in the National Football League, Colin.
Yeah, it's just incredible to watch it. And what is really interesting, when you get the low-level look at it, Brady looks left, right, turns left, fires. So that is that's something that happened in practice because Brady really manipulates the safety.
Practice? Are we talking about practice?
Exactly. That's why Brady's a first-ballot guy. Greg Cosell, good talking to you, bud.
All right, Colin, thanks.
Yeah. You watch that play, Brady goes right, look right, turns, fires. Barely has time to look. That's why you go to practice. You know what I mean? That's why it matters. That's a John Wooden. You won that play in practice. That play happened in practice. All right. Is it ever okay to sell your soul?
Interesting.
Want more of the herd? The Thundering Herd Podcast.
For the record, since Sony executives have the backbone of a squid, and you won't be able to watch the interview, there are some good movies this holiday season. I know a lot of people out there during the holidays, you go and pick a movie because you have time, you're with your kids and stuff. I'll just tell you the 3 I've watched recently. I went and saw Boyhood a couple months ago. Give it an A. One of my favorite movies in the last couple years. I went and saw Chef. I'd give it a B, B+. I thought it was very cute, very clever, great story. I'd give Birdman a B. I think Michael Keaton deserves an A+. It's quirky. I like it a lot. I don't think it's for everybody. I love anything Michael Keaton's in. So Boyhood was an A. Fascinating. They filmed it over 12 years. Chef and Birdman, B+. Liked him a lot. Those are my recommendations. I wanted to go watch the interview, but thanks a lot, Sony. And what else? By the way, Rex Reed did not like Birdman. Rex Reed's a New York film critic forever. He said, an unrecognizable Keaton seems to have aged 40 years since the last time he appeared on screen. He's still the best reason to suffer through a miserable load of deranged, diluted crap masquerading as a black comedy. That's pretty harsh. He didn't like Tammy either. Yeah. Interstellar. He didn't like Interstellar. His favorite movie of the year was The Theory of Everything, which is the life story of Stephen Hawking. So, which will probably be pretty interesting. Is it a love story? Oh, boy. Love story.
What, with science?
I think nerds make out, too. I think they love people, too. I mean, it's not, nobody wants to watch it, but Plan, Prep, Plan the Herd brought to you by Home Depot. More saving, more doing, the power of the Home Depot. So, listen, you always get these rumors whenever you got this big job available. The Jets want Jim Harbaugh, you hear, and the Raiders want Jim Harbaugh, and the Dolphins want Jim Harbaugh. Stories broke yesterday that Michigan has offered him $8 million, over $8 million a year. And, obviously, he is their leading candidate. They have secondary candidates, but they're getting gobbled up, and they're re-signing deals. So, as I said earlier, Michigan has always had this sort of snooty sensibility, and they're finding out that to compete in college football at the highest levels, you need a great coach, and you got to pay him upwards of $5, $6, $7, $8 million. You do, and that's the competitive environment now between college and the pros. So the snootiness, go pound sand on that, Michigan. You're just like Auburn. Okay, you're going to overpay for a coach to win football games, and you're going to turn your head to some academic issues you don't want to confront. And your coach is going to own you. You're not going to own your coach. Welcome to the world of headhunting at the highest level. But I'll tell you this, desperate times equal desperate measures, and cities in the Big Ten footprint don't produce as much high school talent. And Wisconsin, within coaching circles, it is understood. Wisconsin doesn't pay big boy money to assistants. And I've heard more than a few say that. Paul Chryst is the guy they hired yesterday. He ain't Harbaugh. He's not Urban Meyer. He's nice and capable. He's not Urban. He's not Harbaugh. Okay? And so, we can all sit here and mock Michigan. But this is the world we live in today. If you're playing in technology, you're going to have to overpay for the best engineers. If you're in litigation, you may have to overpay for a top, litigator. College football is growing rapidly, and the Big Ten is dying rapidly. What else is Michigan to do? I'm going to applaud Michigan for understanding sort of the gravitas of the situation and saying, we're going to go after the biggest and the best. I wouldn't mock a Pac-12 team for doing it. I wouldn't mock a SEC team for doing it. This is what you got to do. Harbaugh's the best. What I think is funny is this kind of upper crust sensibility that Michigan's had looking down at others. They have now become what they detest. Basically selling their soul will let more, I can tell you right now what Harbaugh's saying. If Harbaugh's negotiating, here's what it is. I can leave anytime I want, no penalty to an NFL team. I get to use the jet as much as I want because that's what Nick Saban gets. And they're by the way, Harbaugh came out for the Texas job, so did Saban. You're dealing with the same agents and the same rarefied air. Harbaugh's saying, okay, I get this pension. My assistant coaches get certain pensions. Those pensions can cash out if my assistants leave. That's what they have at USC, a private school. You leave, you can cash out your pension, take the cash, go to your next gig. Very attractive to assistant coaches. He's probably saying, I want the jet anytime I can get it. I don't want any lip from the admissions office. I want $8.1 million a year. You may have to pay another $1 million for a top defensive coordinator. And that's what Harbaugh is dictating all the terms here. That's the way it goes. Just some people struggle to acknowledge that's the real world. But I can guarantee, now I don't think Harbaugh really wants the job. But I do think there becomes a time in life when somebody gives you so much unmitigated leverage, you've got to seriously consider it. I mean, again, I love where I work. But if somebody comes and says 50-50 revenue share, every spot you get 50% of it. You can own your own show. You get this, you get that. You got to listen. I could be very happy, but this is the way the world works. So I think Michigan's going to a level where they're opening up. As Adam Schefter said earlier, Michigan historically doesn't like the space they're in now.
Michigan is a school that balked at using private planes for recruiting, it balked at giving iPads to its football program, balks at increasing the size of its support staff. It has one of the smallest support staffs. And now, allegedly, it's offering all this money to get Jim Harbaugh.
They're selling their soul to a large degree to keep up with the Joneses. Not saying it's a bad thing. Not saying it's a terrible thing. I think it's the time we live in. I thought this story was interesting as well. The 49ers have released Ray McDonald. Trent Baalke announced the team has decided to release defensive tackle Ray McDonald. This is about a pattern of poor behavior, said their general manager. Now, it should be duly noted. No arrests have been made, nor have charges been filed. But as Baalke says,
well, this organization has a strong belief in due process. Ray's demonstrated a pattern of poor decision-making that has led to multiple distractions for this organization and this football team that really can no longer be tolerated.
My thoughts on that next. The Herd.
Colin Cowherd.
The Thundering Herd Podcast.
So Ray McDonald, defensive tackle, trouble guy, in trouble a lot, got released by the Niners. Here's what they're now. This was the domestic violence accusations. I went and looked at his sheet on May 25th. He got in trouble. August 31st, this past December, suspect in another sexual assault investigation. Having covered professional sports, let me tell you something. With very, very, very few exceptions, you know the guys who are trouble. It's not hard to figure it out, and you know very soon. But the Niners were like, due process, due process, due process. Here's Trent Baalke.
Well, this organization has a strong belief in due process. Ray's demonstrated a pattern of poor decision-making that has led to multiple distractions for this organization and this football team that really can no longer be tolerated.
Where's due process? No arrests have been made. No charges have been filed. Where's due process? You know why it is out the window? Because the playoffs are. This is gamesmanship. You're either for free speech and due process or you're not. Now, I'm not for due process in every situation. I'm not. I will sever ties with a business, a relationship, if I think it's gone south, if I don't trust somebody. So I'm not somebody that needs charges filed to say I'm out on a person, on a player, on a team. A lot of people argue for due process in public positions. I'm not into it completely. I don't believe in absolute due process. You know, a lot of times for people in the public sector, guilty until proven innocent. Private sector, innocent until proven guilty. But I think it's funny that it was due process, due process, due process. We're a little uncomfortable. Well, no arrests, no charges been filed. Here's the other thing that I saw this morning. So, the NFL is obviously wildly popular. And they just to show you how powerful they are, they cut a deal. They put it up for bid, and CBS won it. That CBS paid $250 million to air 8 games on Thursday night. So those games are done. And the other 8 Thursday games are now on the NFL Network. But here's what happened. So tonight's game on the NFL Network is the Titans and the Jaguars. And as somebody who watched the Titans and the Jets last week, this will be worse. But I said to our staff, we generally do play the ratings game after a game. I'm going to get the guess. So it's NFL Network, which not everybody gets. And the game is, you couldn't pick two more boring teams in the NFL, Jacksonville and Tennessee. I'm going to guess it gets a 2-9, which, by the way, is in running with the National League Championship Series, which I think got like a 3-5 or something. So I'm going to guess. Am I nuts on that? 3-5, 2-9. I'm going to go high 2s, low 3s. I'll go 2.9 NFL Network tonight. You guys see him too. Is that crazy? Or am I pretty close on that?
I think we're going to take the over.
You're going to take the over?
Yeah.
So what?
Which is silly to us because we can't understand why anyone would watch that game. But we'll take the over.
3-3?
We'll just set the over under at 2-9. We'll take the over.
Okay, so you're going to take – I'm going to say 2-9 and under. You're going to do 2-9 and over.
God, I hope you're right.
All right, for the record, this game is so bad. We got a hold – it's on the NFL Network tonight. We went and found one of their promos. Even they're low selling it at the NFL Network.
Coming up tonight on the NFL Network, we replay the Week 1 matchup of Packers-Seahawks, NFL Fantasy Live, a Football Live, Keenan McCardle, and Titans-Jags at 8 o'clock. The NFL Network. We love football, just not tonight's football.
Oh, Lord. That's going to be terrible. Tom, you're in the herd. Go ahead.
Yeah, Colin, you kind of said what I was thinking already about Ray McDonald was they rode this horse all the way through, and then when it came down to other guys, they got Carolina, got benched and everything, and they wait till as soon as they're not eligible for the playoffs, now he's a distraction.
Yeah, I mean, Tom, this is one of those things where you're into due process or you're not. And, when I covered, the time, I don't go into locker rooms much anymore, or I don't at all, but when I did, you knew the guys that were trouble. There are some exceptions, but they played a game with Ray McDonald, and the minute they're out of the playoffs, it's like, we've got scruples here. We don't like what we're seeing. Come on now. ESPN Radio presented by Progressive Insurance. Test Drive Snapshot. See how much you could save before you switch to Progressive, progressive.com/snapshot. The big games this weekend, I'll tell you the game I'm really interested in. I mean, obviously, Indianapolis is at Dallas. Very interesting game. I think they're both now playoff teams. They will be. This one interests me. Denver at Cincinnati on Monday night and we haven't had very good Monday night games. This one's interesting. And Denver's a favorite. This game is going to give us, I think, a preview of the playoffs. Cincinnati has playoff personnel. Whether they make it or not, they have NFL playoff personnel. Denver's going to be a playoff team. This is the kind of weather. What is the weather in Cincinnati on Monday? You watch Peyton Manning's arm. It has eroded. They're running the football more. This is going to be a playoff game, especially with Peyton Manning, is going to be played at night because you're going to put Peyton Manning on at night because he's going to get bigger ratings. The weather's going to be cold. It's going to be in the 30s. So here we go. So you're going to have a football game at Cincinnati, 8:30, 9:30, 10:30, Monday night, cold weather, little windy. That's what Foxborough is going to be like. That's what Baltimore is going to be like. That's what Pittsburgh is going to be like. That's what Denver could be like in about a month. That game, to me, is the best Monday Night Football game we have had this year. The other game that jumps out to me, and you're going to say I'm absolutely out of my mind. You're going to think I'm nuts, but I've been very good calling upsets this year. I called Green Bay getting smoked by Buffalo. Well, I didn't say smoked. I had Buffalo beating Green Bay. On my football show, I picked 4 or 5 or 6 upsets. You're going to think I'm nuts. Next, the herd.
You're in the herd. The Thundering Herd Podcast.
When I do my Blazing 5, and we're over 500, and this is going to be, I think, my last Blazing 5 of the year because I'm off next week, so this is it. So I'm going to finish about 500, hopefully 55%. I really do like the lines this week. I told you before last week I loved them. I like them this week. But I think it's fun to pick an upset every week. I think the New York Jets have a real shot to beat New England. Now, you think I'm out of my mind. But one of my beliefs in pro football is everybody has a stinker. Last week, Green Bay didn't even look like Green Bay. You can't play big game after big game after big game. Every team that's faced Seattle in the last 2 months has lost the next week. There is that rebound effect. And if you look at who New England has played over the last couple of months in a row, Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck, Matt Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, Phillip Rivers, and last week Miami. Miami's a big rival with New England. It's the only team in Miami that's given Brady fits. He has struggled in his career down in Miami. They have played 6 straight huge games. And now, heavy favorites against the Jets. You talk about not that they're looking past, but you cannot get players to play at a high level week after week after week, no matter how good the coaching staff is. And that, to me, and Rex Ryan, this is his swan song. This is it. This is Rex's last. Who do the Jets play last? Put the Jets schedule up. So this is it. Rex Ryan. No, New England plays Buffalo. Who do the Jets play last? No, who do they play last? Who is the last game for the Jets? No, they can't because it says here they play Miami. So they got New England and Miami. Rex Ryan's got 2 games left. Which one of those do you think means more, Belichick or Miami? First time they played, go look at the numbers. It was very close. The Jets weren't any good early in the season, and in Foxborough it was 27-25. Okay, so that is one of those classic, a team plays too many big games in a row, too many good quarterbacks, too emotional, and for the Jets, you may mock Rex Ryan, but they play hard for him. They never lay down. They never lay down. So there you go. And it also, in the weather forecast, could be snowy and wet and wintry mix on Sunday. Well, who's that hurt? It didn't hurt the Jets. It hurts the Patriots. It hurts the Patriots. 1-888 say ESPN. James Worthy, Hall of Famer, Laker great, will be joining me top of the noon. And coming up in the last hour, high school coach to Division I. Is he the next Chip Kelly? You haven't heard of him, but he built such a dominant team in high school that UNLV said, Tony Sanchez, we're going to roll the dice. You're going to be our head coach. And I want to talk to Tony Sanchez today. Brian, you're in the Herd on ESPN Radio. Brian, go ahead.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. Denver doesn't have to play Peyton Manning Monday night. The game, it's not that the game doesn't matter, but they've won the division. They're probably going to have to travel. So I don't see where Monday night is an important game only for the Bengals because the Bengals have to continue to win. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's not like it's an unimportant game, but I don't see where they have to play Manning.
Well, why would you sit Peyton Manning when you could still get home field in the AFC? I don't understand that. I don't understand that at all. Yeah, I mean, if New England loses games, you want home field. You can still get that. Ryan, you're in the Herd on ESPN Radio. Ryan, go ahead.
Hey, Colin.
Hey,
completely agree with you on Rex Ryan. He's coaching for his next job. He knows he's out this year, but he's not going back to being a coordinator anywhere. So he wants to be a head coach. And Belichick, beating Belichick this late in the season would at least increase his chances of doing that sometime in the near future.
You know what? Because I could say I'm Rex Ryan. I could say, you know what, man? I don't know what his record is against Belichick, but he's got a few wins. He could say, well, I was 4-8 against Belichick. That's better than almost everybody else. Rex could say, I got us to 2 AFC championships. I was 4-8 against Belichick. Hey, it's not my fault. That is a guy that doesn't know what he's doing. You could write a pretty interesting resume and sales pitch for Rex Ryan if he beats Belichick again. So I think it's an interesting game. I also got some pushback. I said Michael Vick, according to a story, when Michael Vick filed for bankruptcy protection in July of 2008, his only income came from mopping floors, 12 cents an hour in the early morning hours at Leavenworth Prison. Less than 7 years later, Vick is weeks away from paying off the majority of the nearly $18 million he owed to creditors. Since getting out of prison, according to Darren Ravel, where he served 550 days, illegal dogfighting ring, Vick hasn't fully returned to his former self on the field, showing only flashes of brilliance. But in the financial comeback, while less public, been very successful. While his actions involving dogs, despicable, obviously, Michael Vick did not stiff his creditors. He's gone out. He's earned more than $49 million, 4 years in Philly, one with the Jets, and he has gone a long way in paying off his debt. And I said this about Michael Vick. I hate what he did. I don't hate the guy. I hate his action. I don't hate the guy. Met him twice. Look at his background. Look what he was surrounded by. Not ideal. Made really, really bad choices. But I got to tell you, he's got some character. You don't have to like everything everybody does. People have skeletons in their closet. But in the end, I think Michael Vick, I think he's got a soul. I think there's a character there. I think he did something that was despicable and disgusts me. But I also look at his background and say, not exactly Trumpian. 1-888 say ESPN. Jacob, you're in the herd. Go ahead. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, this is Jacob.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, love your show.
Thanks.
You had said that you think the players for the Jets aren't going to lay down for Rex Ryan. I just read an article on, I believe it was on ESPN, where it talked about half of the team fake concussions so they wouldn't have to go back on the field.
Well, I don't have that story. A lot of players don't like a lot of coaches. The times I've been in locker rooms, there's never, even in San Antonio, not everybody loves Greg Popovich. So all I know is the Jets play hard. Now that doesn't mean I love Rex, and that doesn't mean everybody loves him, but they give you everything they've got. Knicks don't like Derek Fisher, and that's obvious from their output. But you think every kid at Alabama likes Saban? Come on. There's you're an alpha male. You end up, not everybody loves Calipari at Kentucky. He's got 12 high school All-Americans. He can start 5. And there's a dad in somebody's ear, and there's an agent in somebody's ear. There's a coach in somebody's ear chirping that Calipari's not playing the right guy. Man, when you're a head coach, you can't worry about being loved. You really can't. You got to worry about W's. Every one of these high school football players, these college coaches recruits an All-American, all-district, all-region, all-something. Half of them will never be more than special teams guys. Get in touch with us, 1-800-FLOWERS Twitter feed. There's a lot of jobs being liked matters. As a politician, you want to create some unity. But, head coaching in pro sports, win games. You're never going to be beloved by everybody.
Check out The Herd with Colin Cowherd weekdays from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio.com, and on ESPN U. The Thundering Herd Podcast.